See, they've been very good to work
Okay,
with.
you can tell which is the,
I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Roll call.
Mayor Yanish,
Here?
Councilmember Anderson,
Here.
Christensen,
Here.
Amon,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Dockin,
Here.
Fagerly,
Here.
DeBleek.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Would you all please stand as we say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda?
One announcement, Mr. Mayor, at the end of the
Go ahead.
meeting. One announcement
One announcement at the
end of the
end.
meeting, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
And
The same one announcement at the end of the meeting.
One announcement at the end of the meeting.
And Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of announcements at the end as well.
Okay, 2 announcements for, I better write this down. And we'll get into the consent items. Are there any consent items that we, do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Councilman Dockin.
I just wonder, Mr. Curry from the Airport Commission and Mr. Rundigan from the airport are here. Could you allow them to have something to say tonight?
Sure, if they would like to speak, they can. Would you like to speak? Come up to the podium, please.
Okay, good.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have the public forum?
We will have that in a while.
Okay.
Need a vote.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent items as written.
We have it.
We do.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That motion has been approved. And we will open up the forum.
We have Mr. Patrick Curry and Mr. Bob Score.
Okay. Patrick Curry, would you like to come up to the podium, please? Introduce yourself and your name and address, please.
Yes, sir. I'm Patrick Curry from Wilmer, 1307 Grace Avenue Southwest. The 1st of October, it was 37 years I've been in Wilmer, and we love it. Okay. Hi to Mr. Mayor, to the council members and the other head departments. I'm going to speak just a very little bit tonight. 3 minutes goes by pretty fast. And I'm chairman of the Airport Commission, have been for some time, and I was on the commission long before the airport was ever built, and then you get off and back on again. But anyway, we have Sandy Gardner, Don Cole, Dan Rigstead, Terry Albers, Dan O'Mara, and Richard Ketcher. He's a radiologist at the Surgical Center. And those are our commission members. And Jim Dockin, council member Jim Dockin, is our liaison between us and you people here. And Jim has done a great job with us. Anyway, I would just like to say that I was on a committee of 5 when we hired Eric to be our airport operations manager, I guess. I want to thank the Public Works Department for the work that they did out there for years. And now Eric is doing this. He buys all his own equipment. And he's done, as far as I'm concerned, and I think we have another member that's on that committee. I think she'd say the same thing, at least I hope. And Eric and I would like to get together with Ron Christensen, the Public Works. I hear you're the chairman, and tell you more about the airport, about the finances, how the airport, how the city realizes the money from what they're doing out there, and if we can set some time up with you. And then we'd like to come back and talk more about it without this 3-minute limit. And so I just want to say before, I think my 3 minutes are about it, but if you go out to the airport right now, and it looks like a manicured golf course. I mean, he's just doing a great job, and Eric buys all his own equipment, his gas and whatever. And before I leave, I just want to say, if you haven't been out there, go and take a look at the F-14 Tomcat. Go around behind it and see what's written in one of the engines.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Score.
Bob Score, 617 Southwest 14th Street. You guys can ponder this for what it's worth. Where do I start? Let me go with the end-around levy play that's in play right now. Mr. Anderson says it's needed to offset the money spent on certain projects. But the way I see it, it's to help cover those who think we need to spend with an open checkbook, but don't want to see the city's balance drop. Wilmer sits on approximately $55 million portfolio. Why can't we take $1 million out and pay down some debt instead of taxing our seniors and hardworking Wilmerites who struggle to make ends meet every paycheck? Is that what you really want? As far as our streets go, they have been in disrepair for many years, not just in the last year or two. We have been told if we redo our streets in the proper way, they'll last 20 years. Well, I had a residents call me from 3rd Street Southwest to look at their street that had been totally redone, and it's only 9 years old. It has many issues, and 9th and 10th Street Southwest that you took off the overlay is in better shape than that street that was totally redone. I've lived there 62 years, and I know how this street business works. Then I want to go on to our parks and quality of life issues, Civic Center, Dorothy Olson Aquatic Center. Who do they really benefit? Do our seniors use the playground equipment to work out or play on? Do our seniors have a senior hockey team, speed skating team, or any competitive skating in any way? Do our seniors have a competitive swim team, synchronized swim team, or dive team? In closing, we are told by certain council members that people will move to Wilmer because of our parks and streets, but our streets need repair and our park equipment dates back to the late 1980s. Let me ask you this. Is everything you own made in 2014? Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all that was scheduled to
That's
speak?
it, sir.
Okay, thank you. And let's go into the Finance Committee report for September 29th, 2014. Councilman Christensen, or Councilman Anderson, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Our meeting, this was a full Council and Finance Committee meeting at that particular time. We called the meeting to order, and it was noted that it was a Finance Committee meeting with the full council participation for purposes of discussing the 2015 mayor's proposed budget and setting a 2015 tax levy. There were no residents that wanted to speak under the public comment section. First item we talked about was fund balances. Staff reviewed the December 31st, 2013 fund balances with us. In response to Councilmember Christensen's inquiry which funds the council could use at their discretion, Finance Director Okens explained the ramifications of spending down various fund balances. We asked information about the uncompensated balance, fund balances, and Councilmember Amon asked for an explanation for the Public Works Blacktop fund balance. Staff will compile this information on those items, and it will be presented next week at our Finance and Full Council meeting. Mayor Yanish asked in what areas the city was long and short in revenues over expenditures, to which staff explained that neither has occurred, as to date we have always had a balanced budget. Councilmember Amon noted that excluding police and fire vehicles, there's $1,155,834 in vehicle replacement scheduled for 2015, and stated the city should delay vehicle purchases except for those needed for police and fire for 1 year to help pay for the auditorium. He also had concerns with employee compensation costs. We noted that the council will be discussing capital expenditures and pavement management at our October 13th, 2014 meeting. Then we had a county and school 10-year levy history. Staff briefly reviewed the 2014 City Assessors Report reflecting a 10-year history of the county, school district, and EDC levies. We asked about why the EDC amounts varied from one year to the next, since the annual amount of the levy has been the same for several years. That will be addressed next week as well. Councilmember Nelson noted the amounts listed after the aids and asked for an explanation. Staff will compile information on both the EDC and specific aids when we're presented next week. Councilmember DeBleek asked about the status of the Job Z program. Planning and Development Director Peterson reported the program terminates in 2015. We had a little discussion on fees. Various fees collected by the city over the past few years were reviewed, as well as budgeted amounts for 2014 and the proposed budget amounts for 2015. Then we talked about item number 4, which is the levy, and we noted that the full council should weigh in on this, and we would have a discussion, and a subsequent action would be taken to set the preliminary levy. Under the adoption of the 2015 proposed property tax levy, we reviewed the proposed plan for funding the city auditorium project that included $250,000 from the 2014 capital improvements budget, $250,000 borrowed from the self-insurance reserve, $250,000 borrowed from the public improvements revolving fund, $163,000 from the RAC 8 fund balance, and $208,000 from previous 3 years unspent capital improvement funds. I had some concerns about spending down the reserves and proposed that the levy be increased by $250,000 for 2015 to pay off the amount to be borrowed from the self-insurance reserves. In 2016, the additional levy could be used to pay off the balance borrowed from the public improvement revolving fund, and then in 2017, the additional levy could be earmarked for needed capital improvements to parks and facilities. Questions were raised as to how that would increase individual property taxes, and Finance Director Okins explained that a $250,000 increase would require an increase of approximately 2 basis points. This translates to an increase of about $26 a year on a $150,000 home. Questions were raised about the amount of taxes that will be generated by MinWest once they are placed on the tax rolls beginning in 2016. Staff will verify amounts and present them at a future meeting. Councilmember Fagerly noted that all users, including nonprofit entities, would pay a franchise fee. Councilmember Christensen indicated he preferred a tax levy rather than a franchise fee, as it would be more transparent, and discussed at previous meetings and reminded council members to consider the upcoming expanded tax base as well as tweaking the capital improvements program. I reminded the council that there is also the possibility of proposing a local option sales tax on the 2016 ballot. Following discussion, there was a motion made, seconded, and passed, and we passed that resolution that, and I'm going to just paraphrase a lot of this that's here, but we increased the preliminary levy. This is the preliminary levy by $215,000. That sets the preliminary levy at $4,451,028. That was passed by the council. And then we moved into a discussion with the Finance Committee on some other items. Staff presented a request to reallocate funds in the 2014 capital improvement budget originally approved for replacement of cedar shakes at the Civic Center for $60,000. It's been determined that the Cedar Shake project cannot be completed for the budgeted amount at this time, and staff is proposing that $17,408 of that amount be used for relocation of the office at the Civic Center. When the auditorium was constructed in 2007, relocation of the office was considered but postponed to determine whether or not it would be beneficial. It has become apparent that there would be a tremendous benefit for the office to be near the entrance to the facility for better communication with both users of the facility and part-time staff working ticket sales and concessions. Following discussion, there was a motion made and seconded, and I will introduce a resolution to reallocate $17,408 from the Cedar Shake replacement project and the 2014 Civic Center capital improvement budget to the office relocation project and to authorize the mayor and city administrator to execute the contract with Cornerstone Construction Incorporated.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to authorize, to approve a transfer of funds from the 2013 capital budget to allow for relocation of the office from its current location to the ticket sales rental room area of the Civic Center. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson. Aye. Darkin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries.
Item number 6 was to reallocate 2014 capital improvement budget in the IT area. Staff presented a request to reallocate funds in the 2014 capital improvement budget originally approved for the purchase of agenda software for $27,000. Due to employee turnover, development and planning for this new agenda software has not been instituted in 2014, but has been requested for 2016. It has since been determined that the data backup disaster recovery system is in need of being replaced. The current system is 5 years old and is in question of being able to successfully perform in the event of a hardware failure or disaster. 3 servers that are 8 years old and out of warranty would also be replaced. The total cost is estimated at $28,442. The remaining $1,442 is available from the 2014 IT Department Operations budget. Councilmember Christensen asked a couple of questions. First, if the software would be purchased locally, and Councilmember Fagerly asked if IT looked into the possibility of using the cloud instead of hardware for the backup system. And before we move on, I think we need an answer on those 2 things, please.
Yes, I did talk with our information systems coordinator, and in terms of using the cloud, we don't use it in terms of the backup for this because of the sensitivity of the data and such, and so don't want it out there. And regarding the vendor's actually from St. Cloud. We do require, though, that all of our vendors kind of meet or beat the state price and such, and the vendor is High Point, and we have used them for our phones and such as well. So.
Okay. So following discussion, there was a motion made, seconded, and passed, and I would introduce a resolution to reallocate $27,000 from the agenda software project in the 2014 IT capital improvement budget and to the data backup system project.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to reallocate $27,779.40 from the 2014 capital project budget for agenda software to purchase a new data backup system. Is there any discussion?
Just one question.
What is that?
The agenda software going to 2016, not 2015?
I believe it is shown in the 2016 capital
Okay,
plan, not the
and that's okay?
2015. At this point, yes. I mean, in terms of the overall priorities and the capital need, it fits into 2016.
Okay.
And the system we're using does work.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Darkin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries.
The next item were some reports. We looked at the July Rice Hospital second quarter, or July Rice Hospital, and we looked at the second quarter interest and dividends, the second quarter investment activity, June 30th, 2014 investment, listing 10-year historical investment balances by quarter, 10-year historical interest and dividends by quarter, and August Rice Trust. That was for information only. There was no old business. Under new business, we indicated that there would be another work session for the full council on October 13th and again on November 14th, and also reminded the council and the public that the walk for the corridor was to be the next day. So unless there's questions, I'd move to file these minutes.
Second. The motion has been made and seconded to file the minutes of the Finance Committee.
But-
Is there any discussion?
Well, just one question. Usually, don't we have a voice vote on the budget as a separate one?
We did. We voted that night. That was the full council. That's why we just summarized it. Now, remember, that's the preliminary.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
preliminary, I understand.
Is there any further discussion? And that was a roll call.
No, it's just to file the minutes.
Oh, file the minutes, I'm sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That motion carries. Councilman Christensen, Public Works Department report for September 30th, 2014.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did meet on Tuesday, September 30th, 4:45 p.m. In attendance was myself, councilpersons Nelson, DeBleek, Amon, and Dockin. We also had Sean Christensen there, our chief police, Mr. Paul Jurek of Bolig Incorporated, and David Little of the Tribune. Nobody was there for public comments, so we went on with item number 3, which was the police update. Our chief of police, Mr. Felt, noted that the jail census for that day, September 30th, was 113. Of those, 77 were Kaneohe County inmates, 30 inmates from the Minnesota Department of Corrections, 4 inmates from Swift County, 1 inmate from Big Stone County, and 1 from Stevens County. The calls for service for the previous 2 weeks totaled 812, and the majority of those calls were for traffic stops, followed by public assist animal complaints. Chief Felt informed the committee on the ordinance defined for homeless individuals sleeping in parks. It defines that no person shall make use of the park as a place to sleep between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. any day of the week. That goes for all of our parks in the city. The committee requested Chief Felt have officers ask homeless individuals if they are veterans so they can be directed to the appropriate resources for veterans. That was for information only. Item number 4 was to accept quotes received for the localizer drainage improvements project and award the contract at the airport. This is a resolution. Our Public Works Director, Mr. Christensen, brought forth for review the quotes received for the localizer drainage improvements project and recommended we award the low quote to Land Pride Construction, LLC. The localizer structure at the airport, which houses MnDOT aeronautics equipment, is subject to periodic flooding. Quotes were obtained for grading improvements to modify the drainage around the structure. We received 2 quotes, with the low quote submitted by Land Pride Construction, LLC. They're from Paynesville. Their quote was in the amount of $11,833. That funding is within the airport budget, and MnDOT Aeronautics will contribute 80% of the costs associated with the improvements. After some discussion, a motion was made, seconded, and passed to the following, and I will move the resolution to award the contract and authorize signatures for the improvements.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to accept the quotes received for the localizer drainage improvements project and award the low quote contract to Land Pride Construction, LLC. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that motion carries.
Item number 5 had to do with accepting a project and authorizing final payment for project 1303-B, and this also is a resolution. Public Works Director Sean Christensen brought forth for approval change order number 1 in the amount of $29,703.40 to amend the budget and authorize final payment to Dunnick Incorporated in the amount of $48,787.38 for project number 1303-B. With the change order, Public Works Director Christensen stated the project would still be approximately $10,000 under budget. After some discussion, a motion was made, seconded, and passed for the following, and I will move the resolution to approve change order number 1, amend the budget, and authorize final payment to Dunnick Inc. for the project 1303-B.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve change order number 1 in the amount of $29,703.40, amend the budget, and authorize final payment to Dunnick Incorporated in the amount of $48,787.38 for project number 1303B. Is there any discussion? Councilman Christensen.
Just a point of order, Mr. Mayor. Kevin, is it proper to do both of them in one resolution?
We have put them together.
Okay, because there was some question at the meeting whether they had to be separate at the council meeting, but it's okay. One to amend the budget and one to cut the check.
We're good to go, sir.
Okay, thank you. All those, well, this would be a resolution.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries.
Next item had to do with another change order to project number 1310. This also is a resolution. Mr. Paul Jurek with Bolig Incorporated brought forth for approval change order 1 to project 1310 for the Midwest Technology Campus Lift Station / Lakeland Drive Interceptor. Some of the existing pipe sizes were smaller than the contract was bid, thus changing the CIPP lining from 18 inches to 15 inches. The result of the change order is a $34,020 reduction to the contract price. Again, after some discussion, a motion was made and seconded for the resolution, and I will introduce the resolution to approve that change order number 1 for project number 1310.
Second.
Second?
Yes.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to approve the change order number 1 to contract 1310 Midwest Technology Campus Lift Station and Lakeland Drive Interceptor Improvements Project. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries.
Item number 7 had to do with change order number 2 to that same project, number 1310. Mr. Jurek with Bolig Incorporated again brought to us for approval change order number 2 to project number 1310 for the Midwest Technology Lift Station and the Lakeland Drive Interceptor. He stated that during excavation by Dunick Incorporated, a large underground concrete tank was encountered and partially removed so construction could continue. Additional costs were incurred for the removal and disposal, resulting in this change order number 2 in the amount of $18,659.02. After some discussion, a motion was made, seconded, and passed for the following, and I will introduce the resolution to approve this change order number 2 for project 1310.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the change order number 2 to contract number 1310 Midwest Technology Campus Lift Station and Lakeland Drive Interceptor Improvements Project. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion carries.
Item number 8 was old business. Councilmember Dockin discussed the recent Airport Commission meeting he attended, and we'll welcome Mr. Pat Curry and Eric to our next meeting, which is next Tuesday, to discuss some more airport updates. Also, Mr. Amon discussed some thoughts on saving more money as well and keeping up with facility maintenance. That was all for information only, as was an item number 9, new business. Our Public Works Director, Sean Christensen, presented a conceptual idea for a sanitary sewer agreement with a private developer, Mr. Dan Getzman, for a relocated business. Our Public Works Director explained that Mr. Getzman is considering the construction of this business on Highway 12 and would likely install a sanitary sewer line at his cost, but per City of Wilmer specifications for the city to take over maintenance at a later date. Committee members discussed their thoughts on the walk, the corridor tour through the downtown area, and that was pretty much the end of the meeting. If there are no further questions or comments, I would move to file these minutes.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to file the minutes of the Public Works Safety Committee meeting. All those in favor, is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That motion carries. Community Development Report of October 2nd, 2014, and that would be Mr. Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr.
Councilman
Mayor.
Fagerly.
We met on Thursday, October 2nd. In attendance was myself, Councilman DeBleek, Councilperson Nelson, and Ron Christensen filling in for Tim Johnson. Also present was Councilman Anderson, Amon, Steve Gardner, Warren Hagan, and David Little. Item number 2 is public comments. There was no one there to speak. Item 3, the sidewalk ordinance. Staff presented the revised sidewalk ordinance. The version of the ordinance being considered by the committee included the change dealing with the types of furniture suitable for use on the sidewalks. Staff informed the committee that a meeting had been held earlier in the week with members of the downtown business community to discuss the ordinance. Issues discussed at the meeting included securing tables and chairs, limiting the months that the sidewalks can be used for outdoor seating, property maintenance, and the use of glassware on the sidewalk. We did discuss the ordinance at length. Following discussion, a motion was made and seconded and passed to recommend to the council that the ordinance be introduced as amended with the addition of prohibiting tables and chairs on the sidewalks during the months of December through February. And the motion carried. Now introduce that motion.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to introduce, or to recommend to the council that the ordinance be introduced as amended with the addition of a prohibition of tables and chairs on the sidewalks during the months of December through February. Is there any discussion? All those, oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now with this, it goes back to the public hearing at the next council meeting?
I believe we'll have time.
Correct.
So we will advertise it again and hold it at about 7:02 on October 20.
All right, thank you.
Any further
That's if it
discussion?
passes.
Go ahead.
I think it should point out that the ordinance was modified from the previous one where we added the insurance liability, general liability insurance to it. And then also the furniture that's placed on the sidewalk should be suitable for outdoor use and good repair. So
Is that in the ordinance?
that is in the
Both
ordinance.
of those are in the proposed ordinance you have before
Proposing.
you.
Thank you. Is that a roll call or a motion?
Just a standard motion at this point.
Any further discussion?
Question, Mr. Mayor. As far as defining commercial purposes, I've had some downtown businesses are concerned. Does that mean any establishment or everybody downtown is in some type of a commercial operation, I believe? Does that mean every business could have a table outside, or if they requested? Or is it specifically for consumers or people that are using the services of that facility for consumption and then dining outside or using outside? I'm just, they wanted some clarification on that. If somebody could ask that, answer that.
Bruce, can you respond to that, please?
The way the ordinance is written, there's quite a bit of flexibility in the ordinance to allow people to conduct business outside. Again, they would have to operate within the conditions of the permit granted by the city clerk's office and would have to maintain the 5-foot accessibility on the sidewalk. Anything that's left outside would be limited to tables and chairs as with their suitability defined in the ordinance. And anything else would have to be taken off the sidewalks on a daily basis.
So how do we define commercial purposes? So in other words, any business could apply for it, correct?
That's the way it's written, yes.
Not just for dining establishments?
No, and it's been like this,
Okay.
for a number of years.
Just wanted some clarification. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That motion carries.
Item 4 was tax abatement preliminary request. Staff presented a letter requesting tax abatement for the redevelopment of Regency East Mobile Home Park. The park has been recently purchased by Gus Wardell of Hutchinson, who intends to make improvements to infrastructure and common areas, as well as replace all of the homes in the park with new homes. The committee discussed the level of abatement requested. Staff informed the committee that no financial analysis has been performed yet. The matter was brought to the committee to determine whether or not it met the city's tax abatement policies and whether Mr. Wardell should ask to submit a formal application. Some questions were raised regarding the value of property that would be subject to the abatement. Staff will research that matter and it will be part of the financial analysis. In the analysis, it will be determined whether or not the modular homes as personal property are included in the abatement. Following discussion, a motion was made and seconded and passed to recommend to the council that preliminary approval be given to the abatement and that staff be directed to solicit a formal application from Mr. Wardell. And I'll introduce that motion.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to introduce to recommend to the council that preliminary approval be given to the abatement and that staff be directed to solicit a formal application for Mr. Wardell. Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everybody, the council will remember Mr. Wardell came to the development committee about a year and a half ago, and he wanted to purchase it then, but the owners in Colorado decided not. But I think this would be a great project and would really help northeast part of Wilmer.
Thank you. Councilman Dockin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we grant this approval, what are the issues that we're going to be looking for from the folks that want to come out there and do this project? I mean, what is going to make this a positive thing for our city and our citizens? It says preliminary approval. What does that mean?
Well, the preliminary approval is simply a mechanism to give the applicant some comfort moving forward that the council will give some thoughtful consideration to a formal application. He still has to provide his formal application with a better statement of intent. He needs to discuss the phasing of the redevelopment. He will also have to provide us with a financial analysis to demonstrate the need for the tax abatement. As far as what we can expect from this project, we would expect the infrastructure in the park to be upgraded. We think that it's logical to expect that some of the street conditions be improved, though overall they're not in too bad a shape. There is some infrastructure that needs work. The park will be better maintained. He's going to create some common areas for recreation. He'll have to upgrade the park shelter. And again, all new homes will be in the park. The homes that are there right now will either be removed permanently and demolished, or those that can and those that want to can be moved to the West Park. But there's very limited number of homes that are in any condition to really be moved to that West Park. The people that are in the park now will be offered the opportunity to come into the new development once Mr. Wardell is done redeveloping the park.
Thank you for that thorough explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bruce, I guess my question, you kind of answered it already. My question went to, why would we give preliminary? I mean, we have a formal process. Why would we have a preliminary? Is that a common procedure for tax abatements with other municipalities, or? And I don't recall us doing this in the past, so
We haven't, and the reason being is that we've been working as a committee on a different process to evaluate and review tax abatement requests. And one of the things that I threw out as a reasonable first step was for staff to receive the proposal from a developer and do some initial review, but then bring it to committee so the committee can look at the tax abatement policies that we have in place and say, yes, this is a project that adheres to these policies. And if it obviously didn't adhere to those policies, then staff would be recommending to the committee, and the committee would probably be taking the action to tell the developer that we don't support it and it's not worth his time and effort to move forward.
I appreciate that. I was just curious, and I know you're working on a more formalized procedure. So
that's true.
And obviously, I think on this particular property, that would be what's on the surface here looks quite positive. So thank you.
Yeah, I think this project has the potential to really bring a benefit to the east side of town.
Councilman Dockin, did you need to add
Thank you.
to that?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it just seems to me like it's a natural with the expansion that we hope to see out at Midwest Technology, that's would be an ideal development out there.
Well, the type of housing that's planned for the redeveloped park is certainly an upgrade from what is there and is categorized as workforce housing and will be affordable housing as well.
Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman?
Well, I think to answer the reason for the change in the format for the consideration of tax abatement or TIF is a good move since the fee that prior to city staff saying yes or no to something, and then it'd come into the city council, and then it'd get voted down, and there's an application fee that would have to be paid by the applicant, and also a considerable amount of staff's time would be spent putting together and working on this proposal, and if it didn't come to fruition, it would be a lot of wasted staff's time. So I think the reason for that, and I appreciate the way you're considering doing that, Bruce, at least this way it gives us a little bit of understanding of what's going on, and then we can direct you to work and spend staff's time on it so that you're not wasting time on a project that isn't feasible. So I commend you on doing that. Thank you.
Mary,
Councilwoman?
just a clarification, I asked this the other night, though, if the word preliminary approval was appropriate, and I don't know if Mr. Scott would like to speak to that, so that we are not actually, we're only approving taking an application. So this, by doing a motion, are we obligating ourselves here?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Nelson, no, you're not obligating yourself. This is preliminary in nature. Obviously, if you give preliminary approval, you'll likely receive a formal application, in which case you'll have to apply your policies and make a decision on the formal application. So you're not binding yourself one way or the other.
Okay.
I think you're giving a signal to the potential applicant that it might be worth his time to go through that process.
Councilman Christensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bruce, I know you stated at the meeting, but are these for sale, or are they all rentals, the ones he's moving in?
That's a good question, because I've heard both from the developer. What I'd heard from him a few weeks ago was that he had thought about purchasing them and renting them out. Now what I've heard is that he's looking to be the primary purchaser, but he would be like a mobile home or a modular home dealer and would then resell the home. So it is his intent, I believe, his most recent intent, to have them be owner occupied.
And then just the rent the lots then? basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned that they could move these trailers to, from that park, the ones that are movable, to the West Park, but is that legal for them to do?
In order to do that, the homes will have to be all code homes, which means they will have to meet HUD standards that were adopted in the late 70s and early 80s. A lot of those homes will not qualify, and quite frankly, it's a little dicey whether or not you could physically move some of those homes to another location. So the people with those homes know what they've got, and Mr. Wardell will work with them to try to accommodate their needs.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That motion carries.
Item 5 was old business. Councilmember Member DeBleek inquired about the requirement for a second access road to the west end of the Valley Brook subdivision. Staff said they would review plat requirements to determine the timing for the construction of the second access. Bruce, have you had time to look at that, or?
I'd have that answer tomorrow or Wednesday, and what I will do is I will just send a blanket email out to the council members letting you know what I've found out.
All right, thank you. Item 6, Councilmember Christensen expressed concern about council requests for information from department heads. He thought the process was cumbersome and delayed, with some information being required to go through the city administrator. Councilmember Nelson said that staff should not be put in the middle and that protocol needs to be reinforced. And I believe the Labor Relations Committee will be discussing this at a later date. And there be no further business, the committee adjourned. So make a motion to file the minutes.
Second. A motion has been made and seconded to file the minutes of the Community Development Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. That motion carries. Kevin, would you like to describe for us the consideration of certification of unpaid utility charges as a lien?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, every year about this time, the Willmar Municipal Utilities Commission has concluded holding hearings looking for objections to these property owners on your list who have failed to pay the utility bills. Subsequent to that opportunity for them to make comment, they adopt a resolution asking the City Council to place these charges against the properties for collection in the next year's property taxes. These are all properties that are not rental income, as the arrangement with rentals is different. It is staff's recommendation that you adopt the resolution and certify all of these listed addresses and amounts for collection in 2015.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the certification of unpaid utility charges as a lien, and for the unpaid utility charges totaling $8,498.92, and direct staff to certify to the county auditor for collection along with other taxes. Is there any discussion? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apparently, between the time the utilities sent the information over and we put something together, did one of these locations pay their bill or something?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's why the two numbers are different. So we are really certifying 8498.92.
I believe that is correct.
9892, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Just a question.
Go ahead.
Kevin, is it appropriate for us to put who the owners are to these facilities in the minutes?
We have not done that as a policy. It is not private data.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Aye.
Dublique.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries. Consideration of the Civic Center Arena special event by on-sale liquor license holder permit. Kevin, would you like to explain that one to us, please?
Mayor Yanish, members of the council, the Civic Center and the Blue Line Club are teaming up and hosting an exhibition game with the Alexandria Blizzard Junior Hockey Team, challenging the St. John's Junior Varsity Team here at the Civic Center on November 1st. They've made efforts to deal with one of our on-sale liquor holders, which was Dave Baker of Baker's Eagle Creek Eatery LLC, and they have the opportunity to use his state caterer's alcohol license to serve alcohol for this event. This permit is to authorize the sale in the Civic Center, and it is staff's recommendation that the council adopt on a roll call vote this permit being to be granted.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion has been made to consider the adoption of a resolution appointing, of the event by on-sale liquor license holder permit And that would be the Oak Ridge at Eagle Creek?
Yes, technically Baker's Eagle Creek Eatery,
Is there any
LLC.
discussion on that? Thank you. Councilman Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't know it, but this league is similar to the Stingers League. I just found out this weekend, and Mr. Barry Nelson, who's from Wilmer, and you probably remember him playing hockey back in the 80s, he's the coach of the Minneapolis Steelers, I believe it is. And there's been word about somebody maybe, or they would like Wilmer to maybe think about hosting a team. It's very similar. It's college kids that rent, or they stay at people's homes in Wilmer, and then they have this hockey team, and there's 12 or 13 within the three-state area here, I believe. And I guess it's exciting hockey. They fill the place down at St. Cloud. So it'll be fun to see that happen here at Civic Center.
Thank you. That would be a motion with a roll call, right?
Yes, sir.
We do need to have a roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries. In the consideration of resolution appointing election judges for the general election, Kevin, for the last time, you know, I call on you. Would
Mayor
you-
Yanish, members of the council, pursuant to state law, you all know that there is a general election, not primary, on November 4, 2014, and in accordance with Minnesota Statute 204B.21, we need to show the election judges and the head judges for the various polling locations that we have in the city of Wilmer. They are listed there for your review, and it is staff's recommendation that we adopt the resolution listing those election judges.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to adopt the resolution to appoint the election judges for the general election, Is there any discussion?
Question.
Go ahead.
On the cost for compensation, does that also include any training, Kevin? Or is
Yes, sir. The training is mandatory, but the county auditor is paid the same wage as
Okay.
hourly working on that day.
All right, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Is that a roll call or a motion?
Roll call, sir.
Roll call.
Councilmember Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries. Consideration of the consent to ease amendments on the Bethesda property. Mr. Peterson.
Mayor Yanish, members of the council, this is a very unusual situation regarding easements, but sometime back in the 90s, there was some easement agreements put together between the city and Bethesda at the time the Bethesda apartments were constructed. There were some cross easements regarding parking access, utility easements. The ones that affect the city are primarily the utility easements. In the course of closing on the real estate a few weeks ago, it was noticed by their attorney that these agreements actually existed, and they had to move to amend those agreements, which thereby involved the city. So the closing was conditioned on the city agreeing to the easement amendments. These amendments, again, are for sanitary sewer, and in reviewing the easement amendments, all of the city's interests are protected as they were under the original easements. For that reason, it's a recommendation of staff that the council adopt a resolution consenting to the easement agreements and then authorizing the mayor and administrator to execute the same.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to consent to the easement amendments on the Bethesda property. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries. And Mr. Peterson, would you be kind enough to explain the Cambridge Third Edition final plat to us?
Sure. The plat is shown up on the screen. It is a replat of several lots from the original Terraplane Estates edition. Ryan A. Kuzman Construction is the developer of the new plat. The proposed development consists of 6 lots. Each lot will contain a twin home unit. The development has been done as a planned unit development, as the area shown as Outlot A to the north of these properties is currently a private street within the planned unit development, and it will remain a private street. All the utilities are private on the west side of 25th Street Southeast, and it makes a loop in that area shown as Outlot A. The Planning Commission has approved the final plat with conditions regarding the covenants and declarations that are required on a planned unit development, also private utility connections, the existing assessments, and parking limited to one side of the private street because of the width of that particular street. It's a recommendation of staff that the council approve the final plat as presented.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the final plat of the Cambridge edition as presented. Is there any discussion? And that would be a roll call?
No, sir?
A motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. That motion carries. And we move into new business and into old business. New business, we have some people scheduled to talk. Councilman Anderson, would you like to speak first?
I just want to give some updates to the public on some candidate forums that are coming up in the very near future. This Wednesday night, 6 o'clock, here in the council chambers, the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities is sponsoring a debate for the candidates in House District 17B. That would be Mary Sawatsky and Dave Baker. That'll be 6 o'clock here in the council chambers. On the 7th, tomorrow night, the League of Women Voters has a debate between the county commissioner candidates. I believe that's District 3, 7 o'clock here in the chambers. That would be Raleigh Nissen and Dean Shuck. On the 10th, that is this Friday, there is a debate at the Chamber of Commerce. Mayoral candidates and council members. Starts at 11:30 at the Holiday Inn, or the Conference Center, I'm sorry. You do need to call the chamber for an RSVP, and that's a lunch, so there will be a fee associated with that. On October 14th, the League of Women Voters at 7 o'clock has a mayoral debate here in the council chambers. On October 28th, 7 o'clock, city council candidate debate here in the council chambers. And I understand that those will be taped, but it won't be live broadcasts is the last that I've heard on that. So anyway, that's upcoming candidate forums for folks to attend if they have an interest.
Thank you very much. Councilman Ahmed, did you have something you wanted to speak about?
I was asked by the director of the Willmar Area Arts Council to give a brief announcement on an upcoming event that is being sponsored by the Minnesota State Arts Board. It's your tax dollars at work. There's going to be music from the backyard and front porch. It features music and stories of America's indigenous peoples, songs and instruments of America's many immigrants, and Lauren Pallone's own compositions, and that'll be Friday, November 7th, 7:30 p.m. Also, if there are local singers who want to have an opportunity to meet and sing with the artist, you can take place at the WEAC building at noon till 1 o'clock on Friday on the 7th. and she's going to conduct a vocal rehearsal and workshop, and participants will learn one of the songs, and then they're going to be also participating in, the candidates will be selected to perform some of her songs at that event. And again, if you have any questions, you can call the Willmar Area Arts Council or call 235-8560 for more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman DeBlick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to announce the Wilmington Municipal Utilities Commission will be hosting an appreciation dinner on Tuesday, October 7th, 4 to 6:30 p.m. This will be held at the Willmar Civic Center Auditorium. All Willmar Municipal Utilities customers are invited to attend, and there will be registration for door prizes.
Thank you. Are there any others under new business?
Move to adjourn.
Well, we have to have the committee meeting.
Committee report,
First, sorry. Councilman Anderson.
Finance Committee, that's going to meet Monday. That will be here. And we have a number of things to talk about, and that will be for the full council. So in the interest of getting that done in a timely manner, we're going to start at 4 o'clock. There's a group that comes in here at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, so we'll have to be done by 6:30. So we're going to start at 4 o'clock right here. So that'll be the finance and the full council.
Thank you. Public Works, Councilman Christensen.
It'll be Tuesday, September 14th, 4:45.
Councilman Amman, Labor.
Wednesday, the 15th, 4:45. Also, we're going to be discussing the issue of requests for information or RFIs from staff and the council's expectations. So if there's any thoughts, please write or call me or contact the other council person who's represented in the ward. Thank you.
Thank you. Community Development, Councilman Fagerly.
No meeting.
Now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. We are adjourned.
Tomorrow night,
Hey, Kevin, I think I'm going to.
what are they making?
And then I got confused. You said that?
What are they serving?
Yeah.